My name is Captain Sarah Collins, and I knew we were winning when Judge Reyes took off her glasses, leveled her gaze, and said, "This court will not be used to launder fraud." The gallery went still. A deputy stepped toward the evidence table. Taylor froze mid-step at the aisle. 2 weeks earlier, I was only a daughter with a folded flag and a phone that buzzed. Mom's funeral was quiet. The honor guard folded the flag so tight the corners squeaked under white gloves. The February air over Madison County smelled like wet earth and brass. The sergeant pressed the triangle into my arms. For a heartbeat, I saw my mother's hands nicked nurses' hands closing over mine. "Dad." Earl Collins stood a step behind me, jaw working. He'd picked the short service, the quick reception at Holy Cross. "Your mother hated a scene," he'd said, which wasn't true. Mom hated lies. Beside him hovered Taylor Reed in a black coat that drank the light close enough to guide him by the elbow, far enough to deny it. The pastor finished the prayer, the last shovel of dirt thudded, and my phone buzzed in my purse. Unknown number, a gray bubble unfurled. "Captain, it's me. Don't trust Dad. Or Taylor." He climbed my neck, then vanished. I glanced at Dad, shaking the pastor's hand. Taylor was already turning him toward the path. I typed with thumbs that didn't feel like mine. "Who?" The reply arrived like it had been waiting. "Locker, bottom shelf, don't speak." Wind combed the trees. The honor guard racked rifles. I slid the phone into my coat and tucked the flag under my arm like orders I couldn't drop. In the church hall, the coffee bit my tongue, and the Jell-O salads had names only Lutherans recognize. Neighbors came in a slow trickle, Mrs. Thompson from the bank, 2 of Mom's hospice co-workers, men who traded parts with Dad since the bicentennial. They said steady, kind things because there aren't right ones. Dad worked the room like a foreman. "Short service is what Linda wanted," he repeated. Each time someone mentioned hospice, he sent them toward coffee. Taylor hovered with a clipboard she hadn't earned. "We'll handle the paperwork," she told anyone who'd listen. I stepped into the coat room to breathe. "Please return hangers," the sign said. A box for the mission trip sat half full of hats. I read the message again. "Captain, it's me. If it was a prank, it was vicious. If it wasn't someone who knew my rank and my mother's fears, wanted me moving and quiet." I opened the coat room door and nearly ran into Taylor. "There you are," she said. "Your dad needs you." "What for?" "Just you," she said. "He doesn't want you worrying the details. It's too hard. Let us take care of the paperwork. I can handle details." Grief fogs thinking. She touched my sleeve as if she'd been granted permission. "We can sign a small estate affidavit. Get accounts moved so bills don't stack up. Your mother had loose ends." My mother kept pill planners by day and color. She tied Christmas ribbon in 3 even loops. She didn't have loose ends. She had systems. "I'll talk to Dad later," I said, stepping around her. "Some things are time-sensitive," she said. "So am I." At the dessert table, Dad stood with Mrs. Thompson. He saw me and cleared his throat. "You should eat," he said. I did. "Don't go far. Pastor wants words with family." "I need air." Outside, the sky was the flat gray Iowa specializes in. The wind lifted the edge of the flag against my ribs. I held it closer. In the glass, I could see our shapes meet with the triangle. Dad's shoulders square. Taylor a dark comma at his side. I texted one word. "Where?" The reply came before my breath thinned. "St. Mary's, staff locker room, ask for main key, bottom shelf." 3 slow inhales, the way Mom taught me when worry ran loud. I could go back inside for another round of memories, or follow 3 simple instructions that sounded exactly like her: a place, a shelf, a rule to keep my mouth shut. On my way to the truck, Doris caught the door with her hip. "You doing okay, Ray?" "I will be," I said. "Take a plate," she said, thrusting foil at me. "Grief and an empty stomach are a bad marriage." I set the foil on the passenger seat beside the flag and started the engine. The country station was mid-chorus about leaving. I turned it off. Madison County slid past in winter colors, soy stubble gray barns, a tractor parked where no tractor needed to be. Habit kept my eyes on mirrors and bridge ice. You don't stop being a Marine because you're wearing a dress. At the hospital, the automatic doors opened. A volunteer in a knit vest said hello without looking up from a crossword. Lemon cleaner rode the air. I followed the corridor I'd paced a dozen times and stopped at the nurse manager's window. "Can I help you?" the woman asked. "I need the main locker key," I said. "I'm here for my mother's things." Linda Collins. Her face softened. "I'm sorry for your loss. We've kept her locker as is." She handed me an envelope with a brass key. "Second door on the left." "Thank you." The corridor hummed. Through the small window, I could see the line of dented metal doors, labeled in tape and Sharpie. I held the flag tighter under my arm, not because it needed guarding, but because I did. I turned the key and stepped inside. The locker room smelled like lemon cleaner and dryer sheets, a tired hospital scent. Fluorescents hummed. Dented gray doors ran the wall, each labeled in Sharpie on white tape. J. Nguyen R. Dawson L. Collins. Mom's name sat at hip height. I shut the door and listened. A cart rattled by. A vending machine thumped. No one stopped. Bottom shelf the text had said, "Don't speak." I set the folded flag on a bench and knelt. Dust filmed the shelf. A fresh finger swipe cut through it. Mom's white clogs sat toes out. Her cracked plastic badge hung from a hook. A robin's egg sweater hid a blue document envelope clasped with a brass eye. On the front, in my mother's neat block letters, Ray. I wanted to say her name. I didn't. I lifted the envelope cool and bowed from weight and opened it. First, a photocopy of a new will dated 10 days before she died. Primary Earl Collins. Contingent if he predeceased her Taylor Reed. My name lived in a line that only defined me as issue. The signature looked right until it didn't wobble baseline heavy pressure on the first downstroke. Witness names were typed. The address was a strip mall suite in Winterset I didn't know. Next, Midwest Community Bank statements 3 months. Yellow highlighter marked Friday lobby withdrawals, $800, $200, $1 $500 each week. Signatures photocopied on the slips. The more I looked, the less they looked like the hand that used to write, "Have a good day, Mom," on my lunch napkins. Then hospice medication logs. Dosages stepped up neatly, initials tight on the margin TR. 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 Notes read, "Comfort increase per family request." A post-it in Mom's handwriting. TR. Taylor, ask Maya. Taylor had no business initialing a medical chart, but Taylor had been at my father's elbow for months. At the bottom, a cheap black thumb drive with a label maker strip for Ray. I slid it into my phone's adapter, switched to airplane mode, and opened voice memo, Dazi 01 and M4A. Sarah Honey. Her breathy voice filled the tile. "If you're hearing this, something isn't right. So directions. 1. Do not tell Earl what you find. He listens to the wrong people when he's afraid. 2. Taylor brought papers. She knows things about our accounts she shouldn't. 3. If the blue envelope is gone, call 911 immediately." I let the phone rest against my palm and breathed the antiseptic air. She coughed on the recording, then continued. "I wrote Mr. Jensen at the bank. If you can go see Mrs. Thompson. Don't go alone with Earl or Taylor to any office, bank, title, courthouse. Keep copies of everything. You were always good at copies." The next file was a photo of her pill organizer. Then scans of pages I was already holding, captions typed beneath Friday increases. Earl plus Taylor present. Ask Maya about morphine. I photographed each sheet with my phone dates, corners, staple shadows, then kept going until the camera roll blinked full of paper. No narration. This wasn't an after action. It was a retrieval. One last sheet lay folded small at the bottom. I unfolded it, a clinic letterhead from the city 3 days before her first hospice escalation. Vitals normal, labs unremarkable, oriented X3 independent in ADLs. At the bottom, a steady nurse practitioner signature I recognized from Mom's fridge magnets. The clasp clicked shut when I put everything back, the sound too loud. The locker hinges creaked. "Everything all right?" a light voice asked. I turned. A CNA with a linen cart paused in the doorway reading "Grief from the triangle of flag on the bench. I remembered "don't speak" and failed. "Yes," I said softer the second time, "for my mom." "I'm sorry," she said. Linda was good to the new ones. She checked the clock. "Take your time." When she left, the room felt bigger. I slid the thumb drive into the small pocket of my purse, nestled the blue envelope beside it, then tucked both beneath the flag's navy edge, as if the thing that taught me duty could guard the thing asking it of me. On the inside of the door, a curled post-it read, "Two's check refill. Call Ray if late." The pen had skipped on the R. I closed the locker, returned the key at the window, and thanked the nurse manager with a nod. Outside, the air smelled like melting snow and exhaust. My phone showed 2 missed calls from Dad, 1 from Taylor. I put the phone away. Mom had been clear about one-way traffic. In the truck, I set the flag on the passenger seat and slid the envelope under it the way you slide a map under a compass. The foil dish Doris had pushed on me bumped my elbow. Meatloaf and instant potatoes lifted with the heater. Hunger arrived like honesty. The radio offered farm reports static, then a funeral home ad that made my grip tighten. I shut it off. The engine idled. The cab ticked as it warmed. "All right, first task copies. Second, Mrs. Thompson at the bank. Third, keep my mouth shut." Dad called again. I let it ring until the screen went dark. I pulled onto US 169. Fields lay in winter rose, snow fading to gray sugar. A small flock of blackbirds lifted and turned together a clean curve against the sky. Wind rocked the truck. I steadied it and breathed with it. At the 4-way by the feed store, a text appeared from Taylor. "Where'd you run off to? Your dad's worried." I typed, "On my way," then deleted it. The light turned green. I went straight. As the farmhouse roofline grew over the bare trees, another text slid across the screen from unknown. "You have what you need to start. Stay quiet. Friday patterns? Watch who signs." M could be Maya, or Mom if she'd set messages to send. Either way, the rules didn't change. I parked by the porch and cut the engine. The evening had that Iowa quiet that isn't quiet at all. Wind through eaves, a distant truck, a dog complaining 2 properties over. I lifted the flag and the envelope and stood there a second, feeling the weight of both. Orders, I thought. I had them now. The house had the end-of-winter smell of dust and wool. I set the flag in Mom's old sewing room on the cedar chest and slid the blue envelope into the bottom drawer beneath a pile of fat quarters she'd planned to piece when tax season calmed down. Sun through the west window turned the lint in the air to glitter. I listened to the house settle to wind against aluminum siding to the faint tick of the kitchen clock that had counted out our family's meals for 30 years. Grief makes noise. It taps on every object. The coffee mug that still had Mom's lipstick ghost. The note on the fridge, "Milk, eggs, Ray home Friday," written in her square hand. I traced the question mark and felt my throat close. Then the gravel in the lane crackled. Dad's F-150 pulled up close enough to the porch that he wouldn't have to carry anything far. Taylor climbed out first in a neat black coat, a leather tote over her shoulder. Dad followed with his shoulders aimed like he was walking into weather. "We've been calling," he said as I opened the door. "I was at St. Mary's," I said. Taylor's smile showed perfect teeth and no warmth. "We were worried. Grief scrambles time." "I'm all right," I said and stepped aside. "Take your boots off." Mom hated dirt on the runner. They didn't. Taylor set her tote at the kitchen table and unzipped it like a sales rep. "We brought simple forms," she said lightly. "Just so bills get paid and the estate doesn't get snarled." "Small estate affidavit," Dad said, tapping a stapled packet. "Saves court. Your mother would want quick and quiet." He pushed another paper toward me. "Temporary property management," Taylor said. "Let us handle utilities, insurance, all that. While you heal." I pulled out a chair and sat without touching the papers. The laminate had a burn mark from a 1994 birthday candle that wouldn't go out. "Where did you get these?" I asked. "Title company had templates," Taylor said. "I did them on my lunch. It's good to be proactive." "You work at a title company?" I asked. "Just part-time," she said, "helping folks file things correctly." "Since when?" "Few months," Dad said. "She's useful." Copy of Mom's will is in there too, Taylor added brightly. She signed a new one. You'll see, we're all taken care of. She slid a single sheet forward. The typeface was crisp. The signature looked like Mom's until the tail of the Y trailed away hers never had. 2 witnesses I'd never heard of. The notary stamp belonged to a strip mall suite on the Winterset bypass. Coffee, Taylor asked, reaching toward the pot already set on a warming plate I didn't remember turning on. No thanks, I said. You should eat, Dad said. Your hands are shaking. They're steady, I said. I'll need copies of everything. I drew my phone, flipped the camera, and photographed each page corner to corner, overlapping frames to catch staples and shadows and the odd smudge of toner. Taylor's mouth pinched. It's standard, she said. No need to make a whole thing. I like records, I said. Mom did too. Dad rubbed his chin. Sign now, he said. It's easier. Bank closes early on Fridays. It's Monday, I said. He blinked. I know what day it is. Taylor slid a final sheet across transfer on death deed. Draft, with Mom's name spelled correct middle initial wrong. Not notarized. A sticky note on the top read in Taylor's slanted hand, bring originals to signing. This isn't valid, I said. It will be, Taylor said. I put my phone flat on the table screen down and folded my hands. I'm not signing today. Dad's jaw flexed. What's the problem? Mom wouldn't want me to sign papers I haven't read, I said. She raised me to read every line. Taylor laughed once too high. This isn't marine procurement, Captain. It's just a house and a couple accounts. Everything's procurement if you're not honest, I said. She reached for the coffee again. I put my palm over my cup. I said no thanks. Suit yourself, she said, and poured for herself and Dad. The smell was hazelnut sweet. My stomach complained, but I'd eaten Doris's meatloaf in the truck and my head stayed clear. We'll come back tomorrow, Dad said. Be ready then. Bring your boots, I said. Mom liked the runner clean. When the door shut, the house creaked as if it had exhaled. I set the packets in a manila folder labeled the spine in Sharpie Dad Taylor forms, dated the corner, and slid it under the phone book. Then I grabbed my keys. Mrs. Thompson's office at Midwest Community Bank had lace curtains and a framed photograph of her grandkids in matching Easter outfits. She rose when I stepped in her face, softening into a look I'd seen at more funerals than I could count. Sarah, honey, she said, sit. I need to see Mom's account activity for the last 6 months, I said. And who signed for withdrawals? You'll need the letters. She began gently, then stopped when she saw my face. All right. We can look together. I can tell you what's public and what's not. She pulled the last 3 months of statements from the printer and slid them across. I laid my phone flat and scrolled the photos I'd taken at the hospital until the highlighted lines matched. Friday, Friday, Friday. We pulled cash with Earl Mrs. Thompson, said slowly tapping the lobby withdrawal column. 800, 1200, 1500. It's unusual for Linda. She always used her card, bless her, and kept ledgers in pencil. Who signed, I asked. She checked a screen. The slips are scanned. She turned the monitor toward me. A signature that looked like Mom's until you saw the tremor on the long downstroke. Above it, a second line, assistance TR. Sometimes folks need help reading forms, she said. TR would be Taylor Reed, I said. She's come in with Earl a handful of Fridays, Mrs. Thompson said carefully. Said she was helping with paperwork. I assumed. We all assume, I said. Could you print copies of the withdrawal scans? I shouldn't. I understand, I said and waited. She printed 2. I can't give them to you, she said, sliding them toward me anyway. But you can forget them on my desk for a minute. I forgot them, then remembered them into my folder. Thank you. As I reached the door, she called softly, Your mama was steady. If something looks off to you, it probably is. At the title company, a bell chimed, like it had a head cold. A young clerk with a braid and bitten nails looked up. Hi. I'm looking for records related to a transfer on death deed draft for Linda Collins, I said. I'm her daughter. We can't disclose client info without the parties present, she recited, eyes drifting to the sign behind her. Then she squinted. You're Ray, right? Your mom brought us cookies at Christmas. She did, I said. Her mouth softened. Taylor's been in and out of your mom's file for a week, she said in a lower voice. Said she was making sure everything was typed right. I thought it was odd she had keys to the file room. Who's the notary, I asked, on a will from 10 days ago. She typed, Cedar Title Satellite, Jess Harden, but the notary number on this one. That's Betty in our office. She frowned. Huh. Her stamp looks off. I'll ask the manager tomorrow. Could I see the draft, I asked. I shouldn't, she said, then half smiled. But if someone left a copy on the counter while she was on lunch, I couldn't stop gravity. A paper slid. My phone landed on it for exactly the length of a photograph. Thank you, I said. Back in the truck, my phone buzzed with a new text from unknown Maya, off schedule after report. Ask for incident log. M. I didn't have Maya's number, but I had the hospice front desk. May I speak with Maya Alvarez, I asked. She's not on the roster this week, the receptionist said. Administrative leave. For what? I'm not at liberty to say. Is there an incident log, I asked. For dosage concerns. A pause. We keep logs, she said carefully. A nurse manager would have to release. Thank you, I said, and hung up to keep from arguing with a woman who had no power to answer. Sun had moved behind the cottonwoods. The field across the lane wore a thin tarnish of frost. I called the only person I trusted to tell me what I didn't want to hear. Weller. He answered on the second ring, voice like gravel. Mike, it's Ray. Ray Collins, he said, a smile tucked into my name. I heard about Linda. I'm sorry. I need to talk off the books, I said. Hospice logs with initials that don't belong. Bank withdrawals with shaky signatures. A will that smells wrong. And Taylor Reed is in all of it. Taylor with the title company. Part-time, I said. Full-time convenient. He was quiet long enough that I heard a dispatch scanner crackle. Meet me behind the substation, he said. 30 minutes. Bring copies. And Ray. Yeah. Don't confront them, he said. Not yet. Behind the sheriff's substation, the wind smelled like diesel and cold iron. A soda machine hummed against the cinder block. Deputy Mike Weller stood with his hands buried in his duty jacket. You brought copies, he asked. I handed him the manila folder, the blue envelope, and my phone with the camera roll open. He snapped on nitrile gloves. We're doing this clean, he said. Courtesy contact. Chain of custody starts now. He slid Mom's thumb drive into a clear evidence bag, wrote the date and his initials, then gave me a second bag for the originals I was keeping. Redundancy saves cases, he said. Mom left voice memos, I said. She names Taylor. Weller's jaw tightened. We'll authenticate later. First neutral paper. St. Mary's nurse manager had a calendar with kittens hanging from a branch. Weller showed his badge and courtroom voice. Afternoon, ma'am. Deputy Weller. We're doing a preliminary look at Linda Collins's chart. I'm sorry for your loss, she said to me, then fetched a thin binder labeled Collins L. The morphine titration page was where I'd photographed it. Dates in rows, doses stepping up tight initials on the margin TR. TR. Who is TR, Weller asked. Those should be nurse initials, she said, cautious. Is Taylor Reed on clinical staff? No. Was Nurse Maya Alvarez assigned to Linda, I asked. She's on administrative leave, the manager said. She raised concerns. What kind, Weller asked. That family members pressed for comfort, increases that didn't match the order set, she said. And someone non-staff tried to direct documentation. May we have copies of the EMAR and any incident log, Weller asked. She glanced at the flag under my arm, then at his badge and made the copies. Weller logged the time on his phone. At the diner on Highway 92, coffee came in thick white mugs. Weller flattened a paper napkin and wrote with a carpenter's pencil, bank cameras. Notary ledger, hospice, MAR. Title access log. Then he underlined med bottle. If morphine was dispensed, there's a bottle, he said. Label gives dates and prescriber. If refill dates tie to cash withdrawals, the county attorney will listen. Mom saved empties in a brown bag, I said. Laundry cabinet. Find it. I texted my JAG buddy, Captain Green, handling originals. He answered photo with scale. Don't remove staples. Email images to timestamp. Don't mark originals. I emailed the batch to my mail address in a clean Gmail. The outgoing ping sounded like armor clicking into place. We started at Midwest Community Bank. Mrs. Thompson met us with lace curtains and a cardigan buttoned wrong. Deputy, I can't give family everything she said, but I can show you what we keep. In IT, a tech scrubbed through grainy angles until Earl's cap and Taylor's dark coat appeared at the counter. The timestamp matched a Friday withdrawal. Taylor pointed where to sign. Earl slid the slip back. Stills, Weller asked. 3 prints slid out. He dated and initialed the backs and sealed them. And slip scans? He asked. I can export for law enforcement, Mrs. Thompson said. Linda used her card and kept ledgers and pencil. This new cash wasn't her way. Cedar Title's satellite smelled like toner. The manager unlocked a black faux leather notary journal. The line for 10 days before Mom died showed Linda Collins' driver's license and a blank ID number box. Betty, he called. A woman in bifocals studied the entry and frowned. That's my handwriting, but I don't leave the ID field empty. Ever. Who had access to this? Weller asked evenly. Staff, the manager said. And Taylor Reed had a key while she temped. The young clerk with the braid leaned over the counter. She pulled Mrs. Collins's file 3 times last week, she said. I can print the access log. The log listed Reed Taylor at 10:12 a.m., Monday, 3:41 p.m., Wednesday, 12:06 p.m., Friday. Weller photographed the screen and pocketed the print when the laser warmed up like a January tractor. On the sidewalk, the wind knifed through my coat. We're building a stack, Weller said. Don't poke the stack. Let it lean. Earl will call, I said. Let it go to voicemail. Paper doesn't panic. Behind the feed and seed, Maya Alvarez answered her apartment door in scrub pants and a sweatshirt, hair-damp eyes older than a week should make them. When she saw the flag under my arm, she opened the door wide. She called me kiddo, Maya said, motioning us to the small table. Made me eat lemon bars Doris brought when I said I wasn't hungry. She unlocked her phone. I filed a report and they benched me. She swiped to a photo the inside of Mom's forearm, a bruise the size of a hand. In the corner, part of a morphine bottle label photobombed the frame. That night, the log says, sleeping comfortably, she said, but she wasn't. Taylor told me, it's what the family wants? I told her I wouldn't initial anything I hadn't administered. Will you email that photo and your report, Weller asked, handing a card. You'll likely need a formal statement. I'll do it now, she said. She was kind. I won't let this slide. Back in the truck, the world had gone that clear blue that only shows when the temperature drops. Weller made a neat pile on his knees, hospice MIR copies, bank stills, notary photocopy, title access log. His phone dinged. Maya's email hit. He capped his pencil and boxed the last untouched item on the napkin list. 2 things he said, the med bottle at the house, and trash receipts from the pharmacy. Label gives dates and prescriber. Receipts tell who picked up. If those dates line up with the Friday cash, and if Taylor's initials live where they don't belong, then we're not talking probate anymore. We're talking crimes. By the time I turned down our lane, the light had gone thin and blue. Frost hissed under my tires. I parked by the porch and went straight to the laundry cabinet where Mom kept the brown paper bag of empties for winter disposal. It was there folded, one smelling like detergent and dust. Inside were 3 orange vials with narcotic stickers. 2 were old antibiotics. 1 was morphine. The adhesive label wrinkled where a thumb had worried the edge. I snapped photos with a ruler laid alongside, like Green had taught me, catching the pharmacy name prescriber and printed dates. Dispensed Friday. I felt the little knock on my ribs I get when puzzle pieces click. I texted Weller bottle located. Label legible. Friday date. He answered, don't move it. Bag the bag. Seal. Sign. I slid the entire paper sack into a gallon Ziploc, scrawled the date and my initials on painter's tape across the zipper, and set it beside the flag in the sewing room, like a crowded altar cloth triangle blue envelope brown bag. The gravel popped again. Headlights washed the kitchen in white. I didn't have to look to know it was Dad. He always took the curve fast and close like the ditch owed him. Taylor's silhouette lifted a tray from the passenger side, 2 to-go cups with cardboard collars, a white bakery bag, fat with something sweet. They let themselves in without knocking. We brought coffee, Taylor sang, already reaching for mugs. No thanks, I said. Dad ignored that. Sign the forms, Sarah. There's no sense turning grief into headache. Headaches are for later, Taylor added with a sympathetic tilt. This is just kindness to your future self. She set the white bag on the table. Butter and cinnamon filled the room. From the downtown bakery, she said. Your favorite. You don't know my favorite, I said. Everyone likes cinnamon rolls, she said, as if the universe ran on sugar and certainty. She slid the small estate affidavit under my elbow, then the temporary property management form, then something new. Healthcare directive, she said, tapping where a signature line waited. Backdated to the day before. You know, it reflects what your mother told us she wanted. Backdating is lying, I said. She blinked and changed the word. Aligning, she said. To intent. Dad's jaw worked. We're not crooks, he said. We're making it easy. What Mom wanted, I said, was to read the thing in front of her before she signed it. He thumped the table with 2 fingers. We went to a notary, Sarah. I slid my phone to camera and photographed the new packet. What's the notary's name? I asked. Because the journal I saw today had an empty ID field on Mom's line. Taylor's smile cooled. You need rest, she said. You're seeing shadows. I see toner smudges and sticky notes, I said. I see Fridays and initials that shouldn't be in a medication log. I see a morphine label with a Friday date. Dad's eyes flickered, then flattened. You're accusing your father. I'm saying I won't sign today. I set my copies of their forms square on the laminate burn ring and kept my palms flat so I wouldn't ball my hands into fists. If you want to do this right, we'll do it in the open. Taylor pushed back from the table, the chair legs squealing on linoleum. We're trying to help you, she said, an edge under the sugar. Then help me by not bringing papers you typed at your lunch to my kitchen, I said. For a second, Dad's face looked like a picture I knew from younger days. Pride and fear stuck together. Then it hardened. We'll be back, he said, with the lawyer. We'll bring the originals, Taylor added. They left the coffee and the bakery bag like offerings you're supposed to accept. I carried both to the sink, ran the water hot, and watched their shapes collapse under steam. I called Weller. He picked up on the first ring. Say it plain, he said. They brought coffee and a backdated directive, I said. They're going to bring originals next time. She used that word and smiled. Good, he said. If they bring a forged original into a public proceeding, they're doing you a favor. I don't like favors that smell like hazelnut, I said. Make a clean plan, he said. You file an objection to probate first thing. Ask for a temporary restraining order to preserve assets and records. Judge Reyes can set a hearing in a day or 2. Meanwhile, you do not be alone with them. You do not eat or drink what they hand you. You do not sign. I've got the bottle, I said. Friday dispense date. Get the pharmacy cash receipts if you can, he said. If the same Fridays show up, we're stitching a straight line. I barely slept. The house ticked and sighed and made winter noises, and the sewing room held the strangest shrine of my life. Before dawn, I dressed in my plainest black, tucked the flag under my arm, and drove into Winterset with the heater too high. At the clerk's window, I said I want to file an objection to probating a will. The clerk wore a cardigan the color of oatmeal and a smile people learn from decades of telling people which line to stand in. Name, she asked. Linda Collins, I said. I'm her daughter, Sarah Collins. She slid me a form, and I filled in boxes that felt like an inventory of a stranger until I wrote relationship daughter and my hands steadied. I attached my exhibits, the photocopy of the new will, the notary journal line, with the blank ID field labeled Exhibit AB in my tidy print, and a short affidavit saying why I believed the will was invalid. I asked for a temporary restraining order to prevent transfer of property and alteration of records pending hearing. Judge Reyes has probate this week, the clerk said, stamping my receipt. We'll set you for Wednesday at 9. Open hearing, I asked. All probate is open unless sealed, she said. Small county. Folks like to watch. I stepped into the hallway and called Weller. Wednesday 9, I said. I'll be there, he said. I'll have the bank stills, hospice, MRR title access logs. If your pharmacy has receipts, bring those too. At the pharmacy, the tech peered at me over a mask. We can print dispense history for the patient, she said. I'll need ID. I set Mom's driver's license on the counter and waited while the printer chattered. Looks like a Friday. Phil, the tech said, tapping the line. Picked up by Earl Collins. She frowned. That's unusual. Your mom usually came herself. Can I get a copy, I asked. Policy is, we give them to the patient or executor. She said, then her eyes traveled to the flag pressed against my ribs. I can let you look at it under the glass, she said, sliding it toward me. I looked very carefully for a very long time and took a very accidental photo with my phone where it lay flat on the counter. On the courthouse steps, I met 2 women from church carrying a tuna casserole in a pan older than I am. We heard you're stirring up trouble, one said without malice. I'm stirring up the truth, I said. Bless you, the other said. Linda always did like things folded neat. By afternoon, the news had walked the circuit of town. At the grocery, a checker asked, "Is it true you filed?" At the post office, the clerk said, "Your mama was the kind that returns a penny when you give her too much change." I didn't correct him. He was saying character out loud. Near sundown, my phone lit with a text from the title clerk with the braid, "Taylor just pulled your mom's file again." A second photo followed a close-up of a yellow sticky note in Taylor's loopy hand, "Bring originals to court." The timestamp sat in the corner like a confession. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. They'll bring papers you haven't seen. Watch the seal. M. I went still. The house went still with me, the winter quiet that isn't. I pictured the courtroom benches, the judge's glasses, the way a deputy's boots sound on old wood. I pictured Taylor's smile turning into something else when the word originals wasn't her friend anymore. I pictured Dad's jaw when the dates lay side by side like fence boards you can't argue with. Open, I said out loud to the empty kitchen. We'll do it in the open. The courtroom smelled like old varnish and winter coats. Sun through tall windows laid pale rectangles on the oak floor. Our county courthouse is one of those square buildings you can draw from memory flag. Out front bell that never rings creak in the third pew from the aisle. I sat with the folded triangle in my lap and felt its corners through the fabric. Judge Linda Reyes took the bench with the steady calm of a woman who has watched 50 Thanksgiving property fights and knows which words keep a town from breaking. She pushed her glasses up, scanned the docket, and said, "In the matter of the estate of Linda Collins, we're here on an objection to probate and a motion for temporary restraining orders." Dad and Taylor sat at the other table with a lawyer from the city whose tie looked too new for Madison County. Taylor had a leather portfolio on her knees. She did not look at me. Dad stared at a knot in the wood jaw, flexing like a man chewing on a screw. "Counsel," the judge said. City tie stood. "Your Honor, my clients moved to admit Mrs. Collins's most recent will for probate. Any insinuations of irregularity are the product of grief. Ms. Reed, a trusted family friend and title professional, merely assisted with clerical matters when Mrs. Collins's health declined." I swallowed and stood. "Your Honor, Captain Sarah Collins, for myself. I'm asking the court to suspend the new document and preserve records. I have exhibits showing discrepancies in the notary ledger, unusual cash withdrawals, hospice medication logs with initials that don't belong, and a pharmacy dispense date that matches those withdrawals." "Let's see what we have," Judge Reyes said. Deputy Mike Weller rose from the back with a banker's box and a yellow chain of custody tag clipped to the side. He set it on the evidence table and donned gloves. The gallery shifted the sound of denim and corduroy of neighbors deciding whether to breathe. First, Weller said bank video stills and scanned signature slips. Mrs. Thompson was sworn. Her cardigan buttons didn't match. Her voice did. "Mrs. Thompson, how did Linda Collins typically handle money?" I asked. "She used her card. she said, and kept ledgers in pencil. Fridays. For the last month, there were unusual lobby cash withdrawals with a signature that didn't look like hers. A young woman marked Assistance TR on several slips. Is that woman in the room? The judge asked. Mrs. Thompson looked at Taylor. Yes. City Ty objected speculation. Overruled, the judge said. The witness may identify who she saw in her own lobby. Weller held up 3 grainy Stills Earl's cap, Taylor's dark coat, a finger pointing at a signature line. He labeled them with a Sharpie time and date, initialed the backs, and slid them into sleeves. Next, hospice medication administration records, he said. The nurse manager laid out the morphine titration page under the document camera. The screen on the wall threw the neat columns up for everyone to see. Dosages stepping. Margins initialed TR. Who initials entries? Judge Reyes asked. Licensed staff, the manager said. Family members do not. And is Ms. Reed licensed staff? No. City Ty clicked his pen. Your Honor, hospice care involves comfort families often convey wishes. Initials may be clerical. Clerical initials in a medical record are not a thing, Judge Reyes said, dry as a Kansas summer. The gallery rippled. Maya Alvarez Weller called. Maya walked to the stand in thrift store black and spoke like every sentence cost something. Mrs. Collins was oriented. The comfort plan changed too fast. When I raised concerns, I was placed on leave. Weller displayed a photo of Mom's forearm with a ring-shaped bruise. In the corner, a sliver of label read, morphine sulfate with a Friday dispense date. Who took that photo? The judge asked. I did, Maya said, because the log said sleeping comfortably that night. City Ty objected again. Foundation chain of custody. Deputy Weller. The judge said, can you maintain chain for the bottle? Weller lifted the brown paper bag inside a clear evidence sleeve. Painter's tape across the top read the date and my initials in block letters. Recovered at the decedent's residence. Sealed by Captain Collins and transferred to my custody. Label shows Friday dispense date. The pharmacy can corroborate pickup. Dad leaned forward. Anybody can save an old bottle, he snapped. Mr. Collins, the judge said, you'll have a chance to speak through counsel. The title company clerk with the braid came next, hands worrying her ID lanyard. Ms. Reed had keys to the file room, she said. She accessed Mrs. Collins's file 3 times last week. Weller projected the access log with Reed Taylor at 10:12 Monday, 3:41 Wednesday, to 12:06 Friday. Then he set the notary journal under the camera. On the day Mom supposedly signed, the ID number box was blank. The notary walked up, cheeks pink. That's my handwriting, she said, pointing at her name. But I don't leave the ID field empty. Ever. Taylor's chin lifted. We were in a hurry, she said to no one and everyone. City Ty touched her sleeve. Ms. Reed, Judge Reyes said, are those your initials on the hospice log? Taylor's mouth opened closed. I helped. Earl asked me to. Linda wanted comfort. Are you a nurse? No. Are you a licensed anything in the state of Iowa related to medical care? No. Then you had no business putting your initials on that record. City Ty found his footing. Your Honor, grief families muddle roles. None of this proves intent. The will expresses Mrs. Collins's wishes. We have the original here. Taylor opened the portfolio and drew out a heavy bond sheet with a gold seal that winked under the lights. She held it like a talisman. May I approach? Weller asked. Bring it here, the judge said. He gloved up and set the original beside the notary journal and the prior photocopy. He didn't touch the seal. He looked at it the way my gunnery sergeant once looked at a 2 rifle. Your Honor, he said under magnification, the seal is printed no emboss. Commission number doesn't match the notary's commission on file. The signature's baseline wobbles and overlaps the line twice. The letter Y in Collins tails the wrong way compared to Mrs. Collins' earlier signatures. City Ty flushed. You're not a handwriting expert. No, Weller said, but I know a printed sticker when I see one. Judge Reyes took off her glasses and held the paper up to the window light. The room went so quiet, I could hear the radiator tick. This court will not be used to launder fraud, she said, voice flat as a gavel. The proffered original is rejected. The December will on file will control pending further review. The court grants the motion to suspend probate under the January document, issues a temporary restraining order preserving all assets and records, and refers these materials to the county attorney for criminal review. A deputy stepped forward. Taylor half rose as if to leave. The deputy shifted to block the aisle without touching her. The sound of boots on old wood made my shoulders drop for the first time in days. Mr. Collins, the judge said, you are ordered not to alter, destroy, or remove any financial or medical documents or interfere with witnesses. Ms. Reed, the same applies to you. Sheriff will secure the hospice logs and the title office access logs today. The doors at the back opened. A man in a windbreaker with county attorney stenciled on the breast stepped in with a folder. He conferred with Weller, then addressed the bench. Your Honor, pharmacy records confirm Friday morphine dispenses. Pick up signatures, Reed. Earl Collins. Dates align with those bank withdrawals. A murmur rolled through the room, pew to pew, like wheat wind. Dad stared at the tabletop. Taylor's knuckles went white around the portfolio. Judge Reyes slid her glasses back on. This remains a probate hearing, she said. But we're all adults. Sheriff takes statements. Counsel, you may be heard on scheduling. Captain Collins, your motion is granted. We'll reconvene after the county attorney decides what he decides. She rapped the gavel once. We're adjourned. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until the air came back into my chest. The flag's cloth rasped under my palm. In the aisle, neighbors I'd known since grade school avoided my eyes and then met them one by one. Some nodded. One old man touched his cap in the way veterans do when the words don't come. We had not won. Not yet. But the doors were open and the paper was on the table where it belonged. When court let out, the hall sounded like a church after service, soft-talking the shuffle of winter boots on old tile people, pretending they weren't looking. Dad stood with his lawyer near the water fountain, tight and unreadable, as if his face were a glove he could pull on. Taylor pressed her portfolio to her chest, the way some folks hold a Bible, not to read it, but to ward off weather. Weller spoke low with the county attorney. Maya leaned on the wall like someone who'd worked the night shift for a month and finally set her tray down. Outside, the courthouse flag cracked in the wind. The air tasted like iron. I held the triangle tighter and felt under the fabric the press of that blue envelope like a second heartbeat. We hadn't won. Not yet. But the words were on the table, where everyone could see them, and that matters in a town like ours. Words said out loud in order under oath. By Friday, the county attorney filed charges: forgery, tampering with public records, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult practicing without a health credential conspiracy. The homicide count came later, after the medical examiner signed a new line on a new sheet with a steadier hand. A deputy served Dad at his shop. Another deputy served Taylor at her rental off the bypass where the porch light never worked right. The paper clipped to Taylor's door made a dry sound in the cold. In church on Sunday, aisle whispers stopped and started like bad radio. Folks who'd loved my mother hugged me, and folks who'd only loved the idea of us stayed 2 pews away. I took the flag home and set it in a shadow box on Mom's sewing table. The glass caught the late sun and threw a soft wedge of blue on the cedar chest. Beside it, I framed the photo of Mom from her Army nurse days, hair tucked up smile that could quiet a room of scared farm boys. I slid the scholarship application I drafted under the glass too, the Linda Collins Scholarship for Compassionate Hospice Care. $1,000 isn't much in the world's money, but around here it buys a semester of books and 2 tanks of gas and the clear signal that somebody sees you trying to be kind. Mrs. Thompson came by with a tuna casserole in a Pyrex older than my birth certificate. She stood in the doorway as if kitchens were courtrooms. I closed the accounts, she said. When there's a restraint, we put a rubber band around temptation. Her voice softened. Your mama kept ledgers in pencil and returned pennies she didn't owe. I'm sorry this is the road you're on, Sarah. It's the right one, I said. Maya called the same afternoon. They took me off leave, she said, shaky with relief. Nurse manager apologized. I told her to put it in writing. I printed the email and put it in a folder named Keep. Guess who taught me that? Someone with a pill planner labeled by day and color, I said. We laugh the way people do when the laugh is the only part of the day that doesn't feel like paperwork. Weller stopped by at dusk with a clipboard and 3 questions he already knew the answers to. The sunset laid a pink stripe across the lane. He stared at the sewing machine like men do when a machine reminds them every hand is good at something. You okay? He asked. I'm ordinary, I said. It helps. He nodded. Ordinary is what holds the roof on. Spring showed up in inches, drip then mud, then a patch of grass doing its stubborn green trick in the ditch. The county attorney offered plea deals I didn't read. The defense floated words like confusion and grief and clerical. Judge Reyes kept hearings on schedule, kept tempers inside fences. The day the medical examiner testified about concentrations and curves of concentration, the gallery grew very quiet. The word morphine looked strange. When he wrote it on the whiteboard, too much roundness for the weight it carried. Taylor pled to a stack that will keep her out of any office with a stamp for a long time. Dad held out until he didn't. I watched a line travel across his face one afternoon in court when the pharmacy log met the bank Fridays and then shook hands with the hospice initials. It didn't look like surrender. It looked like a gate finally closing behind cattle that ran too long. When the judge read the sentence, the clock over her head ticked in the old courthouse way, loud enough to borrow your heartbeat and hand it back steadier. After I drove to St. Mary's with a paper bag of lemon bars from Doris and walked the long hall to the staff lounge, the volunteer with a knit vest was working a puzzle with too many blanks. In the locker room, I ran my hand over the dent on Mom's door, where someone had kicked it once by accident and apologized so much they could have painted a fresco. I set the bars on the table with a note. For the ones who sit up with us when we can't sit alone. Ray. On my way out, I passed the hospice wing and looked through the glass at a family gathered around a bed. Someone held a baby. Someone held a hand. It looked like everything we are at our best and worst in a single frame. Summer pressed its heat against the screens. I mowed and hauled and kept the gutters honest. The shop next to the house, the one Dad ran like a kingdom, sat quiet until I could bear the quiet. And then I rolled the workbench out into the sun and let it be a potting table. The first marigolds burned orange against the blue of the shadow box, and the tomatoes did that show-off thing tomatoes do when the soil remembers generosity. I wore Mom's straw hat and cursed at bindweed, and watered slow so the roots would learn to look for it. Now and then, a truck would slow in front of the house and roll again. You can hear a town thinking through its teeth if you've lived there long enough. Some folks waved, some didn't. The ones who stopped came up the walk with jars of pickles or a broken toaster, and I fixed what I could and threw away what needed throwing away. That's the whole job most days. Keep what keeps you, and set down the rest. On Linda's birthday, I took the flag down from the box and laid it on the kitchen table, careful as a nurse making a bed for the first time. I ran a knuckle along the folds until the corners squeaked under invisible gloves and said the words I'd been chewing for months. Mom, I said to the empty air that is never empty in a house that's been worked in, I kept the promise. I drove to the cemetery with a mason jar of marigolds and the scholarship envelope in my purse. The grass had that trimmed smell I'll always think of as Sunday. The plaque under her stone read, Linda Collins, Army, nursewife, mother friend. I set the flowers in the holder and read the names of the other women resting there like a roll call. When the wind lifted across the hill, it sounded like pages turning. You told me not to speak, I said, and smiled, because I had spoken loudly and in order, and maybe that was the point to keep quiet until it counted and then count. On the way home, I stopped at the diner and paid for the couple behind me, the old kind with his cap pulled low and the woman with a scarf tied in a way that said she'd fought something and won. It felt small and right. Ordinary. If this story finds you at a kitchen table like mine with papers fanned out and a grief you can't name, hear this from a stranger who knows your roads. The truth is slow, but it doesn't get tired. Ask for copies. Keep notes. Say names out loud. Trust the nurse who tells you to look again. And when you need to call, the number is the number. Help is a door that opens when you knock in order. If you've walked something like this, or if someone you love is walking it now, share your piece below so the next person knows where the rocks are. And if you want to sit with me a while longer, there's always another chair on this porch. Subscribe if you like. Bring your own coffee. We'll water the marigolds and tell the truth until it feels ordinary again.